what you may not know is that the job boards hold about 4 or 5% of all of the jobs that are available in the market today. And yet 92 to 95% of job seekers use the job boards as their main form of looking for a job. And that's why searching for a job online is so competitive that even with a fantastic resume, it's still highly unlikely that you're going to get a response from the HR professionals that are sorting through the hundreds of resumes that they receive at any given week. I've heard as many as 75 to 300 a day for a good paying position, and honestly the last thing that I saw was 600 to 1,000 resumes total for every position that's posted publicly. And I'm assuming that's going to be for professional positions that are maybe $50,000 or $60,000 and above. I also want to throw out some numbers for all of the publicly posted positions in the U.S. For jobs under 100,000. Only about 50% of all of the jobs are posted. The other 50%, aren't posted. They're not shown anywhere. And when you start to approach compensation levels of $100,000 or more, then that number goes up to 75%. And if you go well above six figures, let's say 135 to 150, then the latest I've read from a reliable source is about 85% of the jobs that are available aren't posted at all. And I know that a lot of people are saying, yeah, I know that the job boards are not the way to go, but I don't know what else to do.
Wow. And so, Tammy, are you then recommending that your clients not look at the posted positions at all?
Well, I generally say that I'm okay with my clients spending about 10% of their time applying for posted positions that they can find on different sources and not just job boards. So, employer websites hold about 150,000 employers, U.S., post positions publicly in the United States. I can give you a link to a list of Kansas City employers that post their positions publicly. You're welcome to look at that. If you go to www.motrav.com, and that's M like Mary, O-T-R-A-V like Victor, motrav.com/business.html. So that's www.motrav.com/business.html. That's a list of Kansas City employers that post their positions publicly. Generally speaking, they'll have a list of 150 to 200 websites out there that you can specifically link to get to the employers. And then there's 3,000 newspapers, actually, that still post positions, like the business journals. There are 2,000 industry publications or trade magazines that post them publicly. And then there are about 3,500 recruiters nationwide that have websites that post available positions. And then finally there are those 350 or so job boards that post jobs to the general public. Even though some of those are very specialized to different functions or industries, there's a variety of sources that you can get publicly posted positions where you don't have to go specifically to the job boards. But like I said before, a lot of people come to me and they say, I don't know what else to do. I don't know where to find those 85%, 75% of jobs that aren't posted publicly. So let's go through the much more effective ways for looking for a job and finding that hidden job market of positions that aren't posted. That first one, number one, is targeting companies that you would want to work for and proactively contacting those companies and the right people within the companies. I've said a lot of times a targeted search is an effective search. So having a targeted search, it's absolutely essential. So it's been my experience in the career business that if a person applies to anything and everything, they'll probably end up with nothing. So when you focus your search, in essence, you create a targeted or focused campaign towards the companies that would hire your target job. Then you get a much better result. So what I would want you to do, I invite you to make a matrix. If you take just put it in table form, and you've got 4 different columns. So 4 columns wide, and maybe, you could go 30 or 40 long, even longer than that. But what I want you to do is determine 4 criteria to develop your career search target plan. That's what I call it when I work with my clients on it. So there are 4 criteria that you need to consider when looking for a position. And you want to come up with your first choice first, and then tweak one for your second choice and tweak another for your third. So let me give you those 4 criteria. It's the job title that you're seeking. So with that, it needs to be the function and at what level. You need to determine, are you going to be a director, are you going to be a manager, are you going to be a VP, or maybe a COO or a chief technology officer, CFO, or VP of finance. Determine at what level you're looking for as well as the function. And then you need to determine what industry you would want to work in. So what's your first choice? I know a lot of people who say, I don't care, I just need a position. But choose an industry, one industry at a time. And then the third criteria is the size company. And this could be people or annual revenue. And then finally, the geographic location. And that could be, your target city, or even if you're staying in town, what part of town you would prefer.
All right, Tammy, so let me make sure I've got this right. The column headers should read, number 1, the job title you're seeking. Number 2, the industry in which you want to work. Number 3, the size company based on either the number of people working for the company or annual revenue. And number 4, the geographic location, such as the city or part of town.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes the job title is the hardest thing to come up with. But figuring out what you want to do when you grow up is a topic for a completely different webinar, and that's actually not my forte. My specialty is working with people who know what they want to do, or at least the general direction of where they want to go. They just don't know how to get to it quickly. But once you have your first choice of the job title or titles that you're looking for, then choose the industry that you would most want to work in. And I want to tell everybody, don't discount industries that are connected with your hobbies or your interest. There are a lot of people making good money in the industries that you're passionate about. I'll give you an example. There was a gentleman I worked with, Brian, who is actually the name of my husband, but it's not my husband, who really liked sports, very, very much into sports. His girls played a lot of different after-school activities. And he played baseball. Yeah, he played baseball in college. And he ended up I had him go towards different sports groups, associations, companies. He ended up being a director of operations for the YMCA. So he's in operations, but he's still involved on a daily basis with physical activity and sports. Very, very cool. So don't discount those. Don't think that you automatically have to do that stuff on the weekends. And also, think not only in terms of the industries that you've worked for in the past, but also related industries. There's a variety of industries that can use your skills and experience. And I've worked with people for years that have successfully changed careers, and it's really not as hard as you think. You don't necessarily have to have industry experience to get a job that pays you what you're worth. So once you've had your first choice of industries picked out, then determine the size company that you want to work for. And I recommend targeting small to mid-sized companies first because in the current job market, believe it or not, those companies are doing most of the hiring. And so there's a good chance that the next company that you work for is going to be one that you've never heard of before. So let's talk about company size for a minute. When using the term small company, you may think that I'm talking about a mom-and-pop shop. But actually, what I'm talking about is any company with annual revenues of less than $250 million a year. So depending on the industry, that could include companies of anywhere from 30 to maybe even 250 people or more. And a company that is considered mid-size if it has annual revenues of 250 to 500 million. And again, depending on the industry, you're looking anywhere from 100 to 500 people or possibly more. So to target private small to mid-sized companies does not mean that your next company is only going to have 10 employees. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that there are many companies that don't have a high public profile that are doing really well, and they're doing well enough, again, to pay you what you're worth. And I have found some really companies that are either growing because of a great product or a service that they have or just a niche in the market that are worth only $10 million a year, but they can pay you nice six-figure salaries They can pay it to their management, their leadership, or even to their salespeople. I've seen it happen, even with relative startups. I generally don't recommend, unless you're a big risk taker, I don't recommend going with a company that has been around for less than 5 years. 5 to 8 years really is the minimum for me, but there are some people that have gone with startups and have done really well. I'm thinking of one gentleman recently that got a $99,000 base for a sales position, which is unheard of, and he's on target to make about $250,000 his first year. And that was with a company that had been around for about 2.5 years. So that's pretty cool. I can tell you, though, it's my strong opinion that if a company is doing well enough to hire you, then they're doing well enough to pay you what you're worth. Okay, so going back to that grid, that table, you do finally need to determine your choice of geographic location. And that could be, again, the city that you're targeting. It could be the part of town that you'd like to work in. Here in Kansas City, you could say, I want to stay on the Missouri side or stay on the Kansas side. Maybe it's within 15 miles of your zip code, or maybe it's, like I said, the west part of town or the Kansas side. The main idea is to have a target in mind when you start your new search. And this really is a start from scratch type search. So once you have your first choice of job title, industry, company size, and geographic location, then you enter that into this career search target table. And this is your plan A. This is your first choice. Then for plan B, tweak one of those 4 criteria. For instance, you may change the size of company you're looking for and keep the same industry, or you may change the industry that you're targeting but keeping the size company the same. Or maybe your first plan was to stay on the Kansas side, but now your second plan is to expand your search to within 25 miles of your zip code. And then plan C would be tweaking something else. And each iteration will have one tweak of the 4 criteria. What I recommend you do is before you even start searching, you fill out 30 or 40 of these plans, and then when you start searching, some of them might only have 3 companies that meet those criteria, but some of them might have 175 companies. So if you end up doing a search with 175 companies, that's too many, and you need to define that search a little bit more specifically. So you could look at a smaller revenue range or a smaller distance from your house or something like that.
Wow. So I'm sitting here with Tammy, and I'm thinking, I have to imagine what our listeners are feeling or thinking right now, and it's like, how do you find these companies? I mean, what do you do in order to find these companies?
Yeah, that's the secret, isn't it? Okay, so I'll share one of the secrets. There's a lot of databases out there on the Internet that are free. You could certainly use LinkedIn, but that usually only holds some of the bigger companies, and then you have to search them one at a time. My clients, I show a variety of sources to get the most complete picture out there, but one source that I recommend that you may not be aware of is jigsaw.com, and it's JIGSAW, jigsaw.com. And you can register for free, and there's a company tab there, and you can browse companies. And once you put that career search target plan together, then each plan, your A, B, C plan, makes up your targeted search criteria. So literally you can look through, it'll give you a list of companies that meet that target criteria, and it comes equipped with the address and the phone number. There are a lot of online databases that give you that information. Jigsaw is just one of them. And so, like I said, with my clients, I give them a variety. So it's important to look at a whole picture.